Hello, here I am showing you a new work that I did where I used dry leaves in my stained glass. The foil for my leaves I cut in half using normal 7/32 black lined foil. Using scissors is really quick. You can just cut it in half. These are the leaves I bought on AliExpress. They come in various colors. They're very thin, they're dried, but they're very fragile. The foiling of the leaves is kind of difficult. Just slowly wrap the foil around, and I have lots of video time right here showing me trying to foil the leaves. Basically, you want to get it right down the middle, pinching as you go right at the edge so it stays there, and then fold the two halves over the back and the front, and then it needs to be smooth. When I smooth it, I do give it some pressure because I need them to stick well. You want to use long pieces of foil because when you do solder it later on, which I do show you, it will tend to pick up and come off if they're done in small sections. When you do the smoothing down of the foil that I just showed, you want to make sure that you're only putting pressure on the foil, not the leaf next to it. Because as I said, these leaves are so delicate. They do tend to kind of fall apart if you're not careful, especially at the top where they naturally come from the plant. That area tends to split a lot. These leaves come in a variety of colors. Right now for this project I'm just using kind of a natural tannish beige color and white. I've ordered some in other colors because I'm interested in trying to do some other projects, but right now this is what I have. And it's okay to overlap one piece of foil to another piece of foil. In fact, you have to overlap a little bit so they stay together. Yeah, this is my normal little plastic probe I bought at Amazon. I think you get like a dozen of them, and I like to use it for all different things. And then I use scissors and cut the excess, especially at the top and the bottom of the leaf, the 2 points. Try to get them nice and even. Sometimes I have to add extra foil because it didn't overlap properly. You just want to keep those little pieces of foil to a minimum because you will have problems later on when you're soldering. As I said, they will separate some. See how they are? That came apart. So the leaf kind of broke right there a little bit. So I'll just have to be really careful. Maybe use the foil to help stick the leaf back together again. I don't expect the leaves to be perfect in my finished product, so I'm not overly worried if some parts of the leaf might chip off, because I mean I'm using a natural object right here, so I want the natural look, so it's okay. You see, that's another way. Instead of pinching it, sometimes I kind of just lay it flat and use my little probe to do the bend over. Yeah, it's time consuming. This video clip of foiling the leaves, I'm showing you at 4 times speed. So it gives you an idea of the time it takes to do this. So since these leaves are natural, they're also slightly different from each other. So I wanted to make a bunch of them before I started figuring out my next phase of my project, because I wanted to have a variety of shapes and sizes to choose from. Another nice thing about cutting the foil in half to begin with is that it's quite easy to have the foil keep that curve as you go, because the foil is not very wide. Just give it a little bit of pressure, smooth it out so it sticks nicely, and then turn it over, do the other side, and then use scissors and cut the ends so that they're nice. Looks like this area, sometimes when I fold them over, I not really perfectly in half, so I can see that black from the back, you know, the foil. So I cover that area up again with another piece of foil, and then just cut off the excess, or bend it over. Of course, if you can bend it over, you'll have better luck when you come to the soldering than if you just cut it off. Because as I said, little pieces tend to pick up when you're soldering. So yeah, I just use regular scissors and trim off the excess so that it looks nice and leafy. Yeah, see that another area that I don't really want to see the sticky black backing, because obviously it's not gonna stick to solder. Now, because I'm going to use black patina when I'm done, any black that's showing will end up kind of blending into the black patina, so it really won't look bad. You can tell you've pushed it down properly, because it will not be as wrinkly. You know, sometimes you'll have this overlap edge uneven, and you can either try to move it over or cut it off, um, whatever it works. And it's okay when you're bending over the foil if you go a little too far or a little not all the way in half. Um, and not go at the edge of the leaf. You might be going a little bit outside the edge of the leaf, as long as it looks okay and it's actually sticking to your piece of glass or your leaf or whatever. The reason I wanted to use these leaves for this is that they are translucent, so they're kind of fun. I like using stained glass that I can hang in windows, and I like having different objects in my stained glass that are also translucent so the light goes through them. So here's a bunch of leaves that I'm in the process of soldering. I'm using a gel flux because it seems to stay on the foil nicely. I have a low temperature. It's like between 300 and 400 degrees, because I don't want to burn the leaf too much. So I'm just trying to just touch the foil itself. So I'm making sure that I have the flux on it so that the solder will flow really quickly, and I won't have to have any excess heat that might burn my poor little leaf, because remember, these are just dried leaves. They're very flammable. That orange thing is my exhaust fan, a tube to a fan that then is vented outside, so it keeps it from being really fumy. I like this using gel flux. Yeah, see that little teeny weeny piece of extra foil that kind of floated in the air, but I kind of soldered down that extra piece of foil so it looks fine. Sometimes they fall off, like that piece on the blue table there. These have now been washed. I have to scrub them oh so gently to get the flux off. I don't want to stress them too much. Then I decided what my project's going to look like. I have this smoke tree branch that I sanded down, and I laid it out where I wanted on my project and outlined it in marker. And now I bent 14 gauge bare copper wire, brass wire works also, into the shape that I want. I'm using the wire armature underneath where the branch is. So obviously I wanted to have the wire inside the outline of my branch so that when I'm done, I don't see the wire holding the leaves that much. I made those squiggles inside the branches, inside the outlines of the branches to help hold that area together, but you're not going to see any of that stuff. I just put little extra pieces of wire. So right now I'm just soldering those little squiggles to the outside branch outline. And those are just regular thumbtacks. I'm doing this on an old box that I put a piece of white paper over so that the thumbtacks go into the box top. You can use Homosew or anything else that will accept thumbtacks. And then I turn it over and solder the other side. Now I have a bunch of leaves. Yeah, some of them might need adjustment. I have a bunch of leaves that I either soldered already or in the process of soldering that I'm going to use for my project. You can see that middle one right there is a white one, and the other ones are the beige kind of natural color leaves. Now the solder I'm using is water soluble, which most people use for stained glass, in that you do wash it off with water. So if I'm making a whole bunch of leaves to use later, I might solder them up and then wash the flux off. I use either a liquid hand soap that I have in the bathroom or Dawn dishwashing detergent sprayed on them for washing them. I do have some of that quick clean flux cleaner that I have in my studio, that if I just have to resolder just a touch and I don't want to go all the way to the bathroom to wash the whole thing, I will just spray some of that on to clean it off. It's good to clean the flux off within a few hours if you can. I have waited weeks before I've cleaned the flux off things, and yeah, it might take a little more time, a little more scrubbing, but it still comes off. See, there's that little hole in that leaf right there. That's okay. For what I'm doing, I like it to look natural. I don't expect these leaves to be cookie cutter shapes because they're natural. So if a leaf has a teeny tear in it, that's okay. It doesn't take much solder to do this project. I'm not trying to get like one of those perfect beads around these leaves like some people get with their solder, stained glass projects. This is not that kind of look. So now I'm taking a bunch of leaves. See, I have a lot, and I'm probably not going to use them all. That's okay. But I wanted some extra sizes, and I'm figuring out where to put them in my little project. I want some of them to go from the top of the frame to the bottom, just because that'll help hold everything together. I can't have all the leaves free flowing because, you know, the whole project might fall apart. And I figure I can put some at the top and then just use scissors or something and cut them off so that they fit in my frame. And now when I'm doing this, since the leaves are so light, I'm almost dropping the globs of flux onto the leaf. And same with the solder. I'm hardly touching the leaf itself. Like right now I'm more like dropping the solder onto the leaf because it can't take much. It's going to move, and they're too fragile. I can't tape the leaves down or thumbtack them down because they're just way too fragile to withstand that kind of effort. So since I didn't wash these particular leaves before I'm soldering them, they still have some flux on them before, and I added flux to where they are joining. So they have plenty of flux to accept solder. A lot of my works, I don't pre-plan the whole work ahead of time. I kind of design as I go. I mean, I know pretty much what I wanted with this project, but like I didn't like have a preconceived idea exactly where the leaves were going to go. So I just kind of let them evolve as I go. Yeah, that top corner there is where the corner of the wire met. That's why you see it's like two layers in the corner. I don't want to heat up that wire too much at the corner right there because I don't want it to separate. So I can only heat up like one area of that overlap and then let it cool a little bit and then do another area. Now I decided I wanted to add some crystals and make them look kind of like blueberries. These crystals are pointy on one side and flat on the other side, and I have gone around each crystal with foil. These are, I believe, 10 millimeter, and some are 14 millimeter diameter blue crystals. See, that one's a little bigger. There's a variety of blues, as I wanted my berries to be varied. These berries will also help hold the project together. Of course, the berries are much stronger than the leaves, but because I only use a very thin piece of foil around the crystals, and you can look at some of my other videos talking about foiling with crystals. These the berries, I used about a quarter of the width of a piece of 7/32 inch foil to wrap around them because I just wanted a very thin rim, just enough to hold them together. But that means that they are very fragile still. So yeah, it holds it for the soldering, but sometimes I'm using the crystals in soldering projects and they kind of fall out of their foil and I have to redo them, use a different crystal, and wash those off and use them again. So right now I'm also wrapping solder around the outside of the little crystals. Ooh, I decided I wanted to I might want to add a leaf there. One of my leaves fell apart and became two parts. So I foiled it anyway and figured, well, I'll have it in case I only want half a leaf. I'm also putting solder around the border. I'll cut that extra off, the part that sticks out when I'm done. See, I figure since blueberries or blackberries, whatever berries you want to call them, come in a variety of blues and purples as they're ripening, I wanted to have a nice variety. You'll want to turn your project over and touch up the back with your solder iron to make sure everything's as connected as possible because especially because I'm using such a thin line of foil, it needs all the help it can get to hold it together. That little pile of solder right there I'm using on the left of the picture, that's old pieces from other projects, you know, old scraps of solder. Which I will use those scraps up as I'm working. Because it's metal, it will get hot. So you don't want to put your hand on an area you just soldered. That's why I'm reaching the other side of the project when I want to turn it. Yeah, you'll notice when you solder from one side, you might get globs on the other side, extra globs of solder. So just keep turning it over. Yeah, I cut off that extra leaf. Just keep turning it over until you got rid of all the extra globs. Now, because I want these to look like black snaps or blueberries, I want little ends of the berries here and there for little accent. So I'm just using a little extra piece of copper wire bent to be the shape that I want. Not much, just a little guy. And I tinned it, got it all covered in solder so it's really easy to attach. Yeah, it kind of sticks to the solder iron, but that's okay. I let it cool a little bit, pick it up, and just touch it where I want to so it looks like a little berry end. And I did that on some of the berries. Now this is after I've washed it very delicately in the sink, and you notice that one of the leaves completely fell off in the middle. Well, that's kind of understanding because they are, you know, natural leaves that I foiled with a very thin piece. So I'm going to replace that leaf. So I'm trying to find a leaf that'll fit nicely. Okay, that one will be nice. So first of all, I need to remove all the foil from the original leaf. So I'm using wire cutters. I'm just cutting off the foil that I have. And then I'm going to heat up the edges around where that poor leaf was and get rid of that foil. Make sure it's still going to fit okay. So there's a little extra globs of foil, so I'm going to have to heat that up very carefully. And got rid of that piece. See if it fits. It looks like it doesn't quite fit. Those berries are going to have to move over a little bit. Well, we can do that. Add some foil. Get rid of the... Add some flux, sorry. Get rid of that original foil without hurting that leaf next to it. But still, there's not quite enough room. You see the berries are a little too close, so I'm going to move the berries just a tad over, which shouldn't be a problem. There they go. And then solder on the new ones, the new leaf. Now, since these are dried leaves, when I wash them, I do not want to get them too wet, because if they absorb too much moisture, they will start falling apart. Now, I wanted to test, this is a kind of a failed attempt at foiling and soldering a leaf, but I just sprayed it with black patina to see what it will do to the leaves. And for some reason, it didn't really stain the leaf at all, so that's cool. So now I can patina my finished project. I'm just spraying on black patina. And I know that the leaves themselves are not going to be, like turned black, which I was a little concerned about. So I'm just spraying both sides. I did use a toothbrush to move the patina around at areas that didn't quite get it. But I didn't really want to scrub it in because these are fragile. And this is letting it sit for a while and absorb the patina. Now I'm making a frame. I bought this pretty narrow pine wood that was pre-painted at Menards, and I'm using a bandsaw to cut them in half, a little off half, and then I glued them to another piece of the same stuff because I wanted to make it like a little frame to put around this project. I did make a clear piece of glass the same size to put as a backing for this, so I have another actual piece of glass. But so that white frame is what's holding it together. And this is looking, when the sun's out, yeah, those leaves are really very translucent. And this is the finished project. You can see the color of the leaves slightly, and my trees in the background, and the crystals are shiny little berries. And I hope you enjoyed this project. Please subscribe and watch some of my other videos. Thank you.